Hi, it's Sandy Wiley. Today we're going to talk about attachment styles. The attachment bond. The emotional connection that we form as an infant with our primary caretaker. For most people, that's our mom. According to attachment theory pioneered by British psychiatrist John Bowlby, and American psychologist Mary Ainsworth, the quality of the bonding you experience during the first relationship often determines how well you relate to other people and respond to intimacy throughout your life. That makes sense, right? Our very first relationship. If your primary caregiver made you feel safe and secure and understood as an infant, if they were able to respond to your cries and accurately interpret your changing physical and emotional needs, then likely you developed a successful and secure attachment. As an adult, that usually means you're self-confident, trusting, hopeful, with an ability to healthily manage conflict, respond to intimacy, and navigate the ups and downs of emotional relationships. But on the other hand, if you experience confusing, frightening, or inconsistent emotional communication during infancy, which was more, if your caregiver was unable to consistently comfort you or respond to your needs, you're more likely to have experienced an unsuccessful or insecure attachment. And what does that mean? Then you find it growing up, and when you're an adult, you find it difficult to connect to others. You shy away from intimacy. Or you can go the other extreme, like me. I flip-flop from both, shying away and being too clingy, fearful, or anxious in a relationship. That's me. I think I flip-flop. Either like I'm very, very clingy, or I completely shy away from you. I think what it is with me is initially I'll shy away from most people. But once I start developing intense feelings, and because I'm borderline, I don't have any in-between feelings. I either love you or hate you, right? Like a broken thermostat. A borderline is either 100 degrees or 0 degrees. It's either boiling water, right? Or freezing icicles. It's nowhere. It's like, it's that all or nothing mentality. So with me, it's either, I completely shy away and don't have anything to do with people, or I completely go head over heels in love with them, and then I just become extremely clingy, and that drives most people away. All right. Attachment styles, of course, they shape our adult relationships. And so let's get right into it. What are the attachments? The secure attachment. We're going to go into detail about each one, which I don't have. The ambivalent or anxious preoccupied attachment. The avoidant dismissive attachment. And the disorganized attachment. Okay, let's take the first one now. What does a secure attachment style look like? Empathic and able to set appropriate boundaries. People with secure attachment tend to feel safe, stable, and more satisfied in their close relationships. While they don't fear being on their own, they usually thrive in close, meaningful relationships. So that means, they're not afraid to, to live on their own and be, they don't need someone like that. But neither are they afraid to form intimate and long-lasting relationships either. That's not me! So these are the characteristics of a secure attachment. You appreciate your own self-worth, and you're able to be yourself in intimate relationships. And I often find, if you've heard through other videos, I have not been myself in intimate relationships, especially with girlfriends. I mentioned last video about one of the videos about my friend Sandy Walter, how she didn't know me at all. I mean, she didn't even know I drank, you know. She certainly didn't know I had affairs with my husband. And also with my best friend Holly, I never spoke up. I'd be really angry with her. I never would tell her. I would never speak up, you know. I'd be mousy, shy. So a lot of times, yeah, I'm not going to go into the detail about it, but yeah, that one time she promised to pick me and my son up in her big, warm, heated van. She had a huge van, and I didn't have a car or anything. I don't know. So I promised my son we'd go sledding, and it was like bitter cold day. It was like in the 30s. And it was a half an hour walk from my house to the park. And she promised me that she picked me up with her and her children and take me and my son, and we all go sledding, which is like a 5-minute drive from my house, but it was a half an hour walk without a car. Well, she kept calling, say, "Oh, I'm running late. I'll be there in another hour." Then she'd ring again. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still running late. I'm behind. I'll be there in another hour." After like 3 hours, my 6-year-old son starts bawling, crying, "Mommy, mommy, you promised we were going sledding. Mommy, mommy." I said, "Okay, we'll just walk then." You know, I got really upset, but then I just called her back and I said, "Okay, we'll just meet you there, you know, meet me there at the park." So me and my son were sledding, and my fingers were frozen and everything because we had to walk a half an hour because she didn't come. I didn't know if she was going to come or not. She eventually got there at some point, and you know, I didn't act upset. I didn't say, you know, you promised you were going to come at this time, and my son was crying all afternoon. We were forced to walk. You see, so I wasn't really myself in these friendships. Also, it says you're comfortable expressing your feelings, hopes, and needs. And this is what I didn't do. I was not comfortable with my very best friend, Holly. And we were born one day apart, okay? One day apart. She's July 10th, 1965. I'm July 11th, 1965. One day apart. And we're both Italian. We both had special needs kids. I mean, we had a lot in common. Too much to ignore. You know what I mean? There was just too much to ignore. So, let's see. You find satisfaction in being with others. Openly seek support and comfort from your partner. But don't get overly anxious when the two of you are apart. And that's something I do. I get very over anxious when I'm apart from someone I love. Especially I have very severe trust issues. I don't trust people. I mean, they've gotten much worse over time, but I never really fully trusted anyone to begin with. And now I do so even less because I've been badly burned. So the secure attachment, you're happy for your partner to rely on you for support, so your partner can come to you for support. You're able to maintain your emotional balance and seek healthy ways to manage conflict in close relationships. Healthy ways to manage conflict. That's not me and my husband. That doesn't mean screaming, which my husband does. It doesn't mean name calling. It doesn't mean physical abuse. Okay? So you manage. I think my son Austin's very good at that. He's very good. Well, he was a psychology major in college. And he was on a crisis hotline for a job. So yeah, he doesn't yell. He doesn't name call or swear. And you see, he knows how to manage conflict. He does very well with it. So when faced with disappointment, setbacks, and misfortune in your relationships, as well as other parts of your life, you're resilient enough to bounce back. That's not me. I never bounce back. Never. I mean, I'm still, over 2 years later, I'm still a broken, shattered woman because of what happened with my son being beaten and kicked out of his home, tortured. He was not only beaten, he was tortured. I don't want to go into the detail about it, and also what happened with my psychologist, being sexually exploited. I'm still in the the board is still investigating my psychologist, Dr. Richard Geis, and is still in the courts. The brutal monster who beat my son, that's still in the courts, still going through the red tape. Nothing has happened with either one of them. And I'm not over it. I'm still broken. I don't drink vodka anymore. I drink a couple glasses of wine. I used to drink 4 or 5 vodka drinks, but I don't do that anymore. But I'm still broken and shattered. So we all know that I am not a secure attachment, okay? Let's talk about ambivalent or anxious preoccupied attachment style. People with ambivalent attachment style, also referred to as the anxious preoccupied or simply anxious attachment, tend to be overly needy. This is me. This is me. I am the anxious attachment because I am overly needy. I can never live alone. I could never support myself for one thing. I don't have a full-time paying job that could support this house, you know. You know how much it costs to run a house? I mean, water bills, electricity, oil alone is hundreds and hundreds of dollars when they fill up, you know. Home insurance is mega expensive. I mean, it's a lot of work. We had to spend $15,000 because our sewer pipe busted. And if we didn't put down $15,000 for a new pipe, crap would be coming all over the basement floor. Crap. What we emit from our behinds. It wasn't a luxury. It was like that pipe was a necessity that we needed ASAP. 15 grand. See, this is what happens when you own a home. And there's no way I could support that on my... I just couldn't. I couldn't take care of myself. Besides, I don't even drive. Where do I drive? I drive to the local library, which is 4 minutes away. And I drive to Savers in West Roxbury once a week. So I don't drive. My husband owns the car. We both own the house. I bought this house that we live in with my parents, the money I inherited from my parents. So we both, the house is in both of our names. The car is only in his name, and he's the owner of the car. I have access to the car every day, but I barely drive it. I drive it like 5 minutes from the house, okay? So he does all the driving. He does all the driving. So I really don't drive, you know, and I don't take public transportation either. So wherever I go with my husband, like on the weekends, and during the weekdays, I just go locally. I just go to the library, and then once a week I'll go to Savers, and that's where I drive myself. So that, you know what I mean? I am not independent whatsoever. As the label suggests, people with this attachment style are often anxious and uncertain. Me in spades, lacking self-esteem. They crave emotional intimacy, but worry that others don't want to be with them. This is me. Now, how ambivalent attachment style affects adult relationships. This is what it says. You want to be in a relationship and crave feelings of closeness and intimacy with a significant other, but you struggle to feel that you can trust, that you can trust or fully rely on your partner. That means you want love and you want intimacy, but you're scared of them. You're scared to trust them. What is that saying with the borderline? I hate you. Don't leave me. Is that it? Yeah. I mean, the borderline really wants to be in an intimate relationship, but they just don't know how to, you know. That's me. Being in intimate relationships tends to take over your life and you become overly fixated on the other person. This is me. This happens when I fall in love. When I fall in love with someone, I'm totally fixated, obsessed with that person. If they don't call, if they don't text me, you know, I'm like, you know, wringing my hands out like, you know, what are they doing? Who are they with? You know, that's me. It's unhealthy. It really is unhealthy. You know, maybe if you're a woman, if a guy keeps saying, where are you going? Who you going with? Let me check your phone. I never do that with my husband. I never look at his phone. Never check his phone never check his email. I mean, I don't do any of that at all. In fact, my husband knows my passwords, and he can look in my email, in my phone, but not the other way around. I just don't. I at this point, I'm married 36 years, and I'm the unfaithful one. He's the faithful one, so I have just no desire to do that. Anyway, let's go on. You may find it difficult to observe boundaries, viewing space between you as a threat, something that can provoke panic, anger, or fear that your partner no longer wants you. And this is very true. Usually borderlines, they're so clingy, they prevent people, and you might, if you're in a relationship with a borderline, have had this happen to you. You can't have any friends, especially of the opposite sex. Oh, no way, family, they kind of like want to isolate you from the rest of the world. If you're with a borderline, I have been guilty of this. It has been true that I have isolated my husband from his family. That's part of the insecure attachment, where, because when they're away, you're afraid other people will have it. Other people will have a influence on them if you're away from them, and they might convince your other, like, to break up with you. So I am guilty of this, and that's part of the borderline personality disorder right there. A lot of your sense of self-worth rests on how you're being treated in the relationship. Okay, so if the relationship is going good, this is with the insecure attachment, not the secure. The insecure. If the relationship is going good, then you feel good. If the relationship, you feel good about yourself and you feel good. If the relationship is going bad, then you don't feel good about yourself. Now, with a secure attachment, it wouldn't matter if the relationship was going bad. You'd still feel confident about yourself. It wouldn't affect how you felt about you. But with an insecure attachment, when things aren't good with your partner, then you feel yucky and you don't feel good about yourself. That's the insecure attachment. And that is me. That's true. And you overact and perceive any kind of threat in the relationship. And borderlines are known to overact. This is all these things for insecure attachment all represent the borderline personality disorder. It doesn't mean that if you have insecure attachment, you are borderline personality, okay? It doesn't mean that at all. Just to make myself clear, you can still have insecure attachment and not be borderline. I'm not saying that you are. But borderlines almost always have insecure attachments. Of course, they were traumatized. All right. You need constant reassurance and lots of attention from your partner. Yes, very true, if you have insecure attachment. Others may criticize you for being too needy or clingy and may struggle to maintain close relationships. It's likely your parents or caregiver was inconsistent in parenting style. Voila, that's me. Sometimes engaged and responsive to your needs, other times unavailable and distracted. And that was my dad to a T, because my dad was a paranoid schizophrenic. So sometimes, he was caring and listening to me, and other times he was mentally deranged and psychotic. So the inconsistency, what every child needs is consistency. I had none, and I had none in my therapies too. So compounded, it re-traumatized me. No, lack of consistency. The inconsistency may have left you feeling anxious and uncertain, and whether your needs in this first relationship would be met, and thus provide a model in your behavior in later relationships. See, it all boils down to childhood. All right, now, the avoidant dismissive attachment style. Adults with avoidant, dismissive, insecure attachments are the opposite of those of the ambivalent or anxious. Instead of craving intimacy, They're so weary of closeness, they try to avoid emotional connection with others. They'd rather not rely on others or have anyone rely on them. This is Dr. James Barbaria, the psychologist I had a 2-year sexual affair with. Fiercely independent. Fiercely. Didn't rely on anyone. In fact, he was so fiercely independent, he left home like when he was a teenager and put himself through high school. He paid his own high school tuition. And he paid his own college tuition all the way up to becoming a doctor, a doctorate degree. You're an independent person, content to care for yourself, and don't feel you need others, okay? This is the avoidant attachment style, okay? Avoidance. Avoid. Fiercely independent. Don't want to rely on others. The more someone tries to get close to you or the needier a partner becomes, the more you tend to withdraw. So see, I was the one with the insecure attachment in the relationship with Jim, my psychologist, and he was the avoidant. So the fiercely independent. So the more that I clung, the more he withdrew. You see the vicious cycle? See? You're uncomfortable with your emotions, and partners often accuse you of being distant and closed off, rigid and intolerant. In return, you accuse them of being too needy. Right. Jim would accuse me of being too needy. I would accuse him of being walled off and detached. Okay, you may prefer fleeting, casual relationships to long-term, intimate ones, as you seek other people who are equally independent as you. And your sense of freedom is fierce. You don't want to jeopardize that freedom for anyone. And this is, Dr. James Barbaria to a T. All right. Your primary caregiver relationship was an avoidant dismissive attachment style often stems from parents who are unavailable or rejecting during infancy. Since your needs were never regularly or predictably met, you were forced to distance yourself emotionally and try to self-soothe. This built a foundation of avoiding intimacy and craving independent life. Just think about it, if you had a parent yourself, this is how you learn to take care of yourself from a little child. When you're adult, you don't want to rely on anyone else because all your life you've been the parent. You've been your own parent. That's the avoidant attachment. All right, the disorganized, disoriented attachment style, also referred to as a fearful avoidant attachment, stems from an intense fear, often as a result of childhood trauma, neglect, or abuse. Adults with this style of insecure attachment tend to feel they don't deserve love or closeness. If you have disorganized attachment style, you're likely never learn to self-soothe your emotions. Let me tell you something. I have this too. When I was young, I was so severely abused as a child. I used to rock my whole body until I was 12 years old, back and forth in bed. I don't know, looking back on it, remembering that, how didn't I get a brain tumor or something? Or how did I sleep rolling myself back and forth, constantly shaking my whole body back and forth loudly, rolling in bed like that. That was the way I self-soothed. I also pleased myself. I can't say the word here, but with my hand when I was young, that was another way to self-soothe. I got to be careful what I say on my YouTube channel. So you probably find intimate relations confusing and unsettling, often swinging between emotional extremes of love and hate. This is borderline, okay? The mood swings, going from loving one person, the same person, going from loving the person to hating the person, swinging back and forth between the two. You may be insensitive towards your partner, selfish, controlling, untrusting. This is all me. I have to admit it. This is me. So I have two. I have the insecure attachment, and I have the disorganized attachment. So I have two of these. That's interesting that I have two. You may exhibit antisocial or negative behavior patterns, abuse, of alcohol, bingo, drugs, or prone to aggression or violence. Yes. I used to have intense violence and aggression. If you listen to my videos, one time I had some words with one of my best friends, and I full on slapped her across the face. This is when I was like 18 years old, and she was much bigger than me. She could have, she could have blew on me, and I would have fallen over. And she just like was so shocked, she started bawling, crying. But that wasn't the only time I hit someone. Yes, I've had a very violent temper. So this is me. Others may despair at your refusal to take responsibility for your actions. While you crave security and safety of a meaningful, intimate relationship, you may feel unworthy of love and terrified of getting hurt. And that's me, terrified of getting hurt. Primary caregiver relationship was dealing with unresolved trauma themselves. Your parents had unresolved trauma, which led to intense fear associated with a disorganized attachment style. Often the parents acted as both a source of fear and comfort. My dad, both.